quiz, let me tell you first what it's going to look like, and then we'll go over some of the information that is on here. Once again, I do try to cover all the information that's found on the quiz, and sometimes I might cover a little bit of extra stuff that might be on the midterm as well. This quiz is a front and back quiz. The first page of the quiz is a complete matching section. And what you're going to be matching are 6 different colonies with the descriptions from them. So Jamestown Colony, Plymouth Colony, Massachusetts Bay Colony, Rhode Island Colony, Pennsylvania Colony, and Georgia Colony. And of course, we covered quite a bit of information found about those colonies. And so you'll want to think about that different information. The second part, the back part of the quiz, going to be a little bit harder. It is going to be a short answer section, and so you're going to have to know the answer. And so I hope that you will definitely listen to this review video, probably play it a couple of times so you can make sure that you know all the information that I expect you to know as well, all right? And so let's cover some of that information right now. Of course, we're talking about the different colonies. We talked first about Jamestown Colony. It is the first permanent English settlement in the New World. By the way, I would like to pause and say that there might be several different things for these colonies. These answers can be used more than once, and so don't just assume, well, that's the only thing that's going to be mentioned. All right. So Jamestown, first permanent English settlement found in the New World. Jamestown is also the colony where they used the common store system, which was a form of socialism, and that almost killed the colony. They had a time they had called the starving time, and it was a result of people didn't want to work, and so they literally ran out of food. It was also the Jamestown colony where slavery was first introduced in 1619. Some of the ships from Africa sold Jamestown colonists 20 African slaves. Then we talked about the Plymouth colony. Of course, this is the colony founded by the Pilgrims, and we know, of course, the Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower. We also mentioned the fact that it was in the Plymouth colony where the Mayflower Compact was signed, and the Mayflower Compact is the first governing document written in the New World. And of course, we mentioned the fact that it started a civil body politic. The first time where people covenanted under God that we're going to obey the laws. And that happened in the New World. We also mentioned the fact that it was the Plymouth colony where the Pilgrims, providentially by God, wiped out an Indian tribe that was very fierce, the Pluxet Indian tribe. So the Pilgrims would have a place to be able to land and safely as well. We mentioned the fact that there were 2 Indians that helped the Pilgrims, Samoset and Squanto. Squanto served as their guide and interpreter. We also mentioned the fact that William Bradford was a famous governor. He was the second governor of the Plymouth colony. He was also America's first historian, and he wrote the book of Plymouth Plantation. We mentioned the fact that the Pilgrims had the first comprehensive body of laws called the Law of the Pilgrims, and really a very good colony. Next colony we mentioned is the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and of course this is the great Puritan colony because it was a result of a huge Puritan migration. Over 1,000 Puritans migrated from England and came to the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And when it was founded, it was bigger than the Plymouth colony, even though the Plymouth colony was 10 years old. We mentioned the fact that John Winthrop was, the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and John Winthrop described the Massachusetts Bay Colony as a city upon a hill. Truly, the Puritans thought they wanted to make this as an example of what Christian colonization looks like. Of course, the Puritans gave us a lot of wonderful ideas. The idea of the Puritan work ethic, which was the fact that work is a gift from God and a means of glorifying Him. They also gave us, they had some pretty bad things that were a result as well. The Puritans, which were Congregationalists, They didn't believe in separation of church and state, and they wouldn't allow for freedom of religion. And especially for us Baptists, they did a lot of things to stop us. In fact, Roger Williams, who ended up founding the Rhode Island colony, he was exiled from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And so they definitely did not look kindly upon anybody except for Puritan Congregationalists. Then we mentioned the Providence colony, or the Rhode Island colony. And of course, I just said that that was founded by Roger Williams. We also mentioned that the fact that the Rhode Island colony was the first colony to give absolute religious freedom. And of course, Williams was a result of that. It's really kind of known as a Baptist colony because that's where Baptists got safe haven. And of course, we talked about Roger Williams and John Clark, both Baptist people. Well, Roger Williams, it's debatable whether he's a Baptist, but John Clark for sure, a Baptist preacher that helped establish that colony. Then we mentioned the colony of Pennsylvania, founded by William Penn. And of course, William Penn was a Quaker, so this is the Quaker colony. They also gave religious freedom after the Rhode Island colony did, and was a very good colony. It was William Penn that made this statement. I know some say, "Let us have good laws, and no matter for the men that execute them, but let them consider that though good laws do well, good men do better." A great quote there by William Penn. And then we mentioned the Georgia colony. Of course, this was a colony that was founded to help debtors who were in debtors' prison pay off their debts. We did mention the fact that that really didn't work out very well. Not very many debtors actually came over to Georgia, and it didn't quite meet its intended desire. But we did mention a couple of preachers that were famous and were part of Georgia. John and Charles Wesley. George Whitefield were chaplains in Georgia. And George Whitefield, of course, had many orphanages that he established there in the colony of Georgia. We talked about religion in America. We mentioned that about 100 years after a lot of the colonial era, we had a very deep, dark spiritual law in America. And part of that had to do with the halfway covenant. And the halfway covenant basically said that people that were church members, their children automatically became church members, even if they weren't saved. This, of course, caused a membership in American churches. A lot of unsaved people being members of the churches really hurt those churches. We mentioned a preacher who preached against the halfway covenant, Jonathan Edwards. He is known as America's foremost theologian and also one of the greatest intellects that America's ever produced. He preached the most famous sermon preached in America, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." And of course, a great preacher. We also talked about George Whitefield, and he is known as the most powerful voice of the Great Awakening. And of course, you can differentiate between the two. George Whitefield, of course, friends with Benjamin Franklin, and Ben Franklin ran a scientific investigation, said you could hear George Whitefield about a mile away. He could preach to about 30,000 people. He had a very powerful voice, and so he is known as the most powerful voice of the Great Awakening. We also mentioned different educational things founded in America. We mentioned Noah Webster and his quote, "Education without the Bible is useless." Well, I believe that is a very good review there of what will be on this quiz, maybe a little extra dealing with the midterm as well. So I hope that you will study, praying that you do well, and we'll see you on Thursday.